Okay. It's finally time. I know. I said I never wanted to do this, and I said it wasn't needed, and I said that the plane is simple, but okay. Finally, take a deep breath. But finally, after months and months and months and years and months, I decided it might be time to make a tutorial on how to fly the Falcon 50. I know, you might think, hey, but it's a simple plane, right? Hey, it's just a Carenado. We don't talk about that plane. Hey, it's just a simple little tri-jet. Yes, I know, but there are a couple of things that you might have to know before you set foot in this plane. Ranging from how to manage the speed, how to climb up to flight level 510, how to actually do an ILS, how to do a Falcon depth, all of that stuff. So all in all, the plane is really simple. I know it sounds kind of scary, but it's a bit of a rocket plane. But after you've watched this tutorial, or while you are watching this tutorial, I don't know if you're following along with me, you should know how to operate it properly. Again, it's really simple. Just have some fun, please. That's all that matters. And for anybody that's just watching and not follow along, I do advise you to wear a seatbelt because stuff might get really fancy along the way. Expect a couple of extra G's, maybe a couple of extra rolls. A rocketing climb. What else? That's all I can think of for now. But just buckle up, please, because this is about to get kind of spicy, I think. Good luck. Okay, right, welcome aboard for a little Falcon 50, or at least outside of a little Falcon 50. Welcome to Saint-Tropez. As I said, we're going to be doing a little short, really quick tutorial flight from here in Saint-Tropez, France even, over to Geneva. It's about a 50-minute flight. I just decided to do a really short trip so I could show you how everything works from the ILS to flying a proper climb and everything. It should be all nice. I do advise you, if you ever do a first flight in the Falcon 50, just do a short, like 1 hour trip. You don't need a full-on long haul to learn this plane. I don't want to waste your time with that unless you want to spend 7 hours in this plane. I mean, I wouldn't mind. The plane itself is currently in cold and dark. We are flying, of course, our beautiful livery. We'll go and get the flight plan sorted soon, get the fuel in, and then we should be good to go. So, like I said, first up with the flight plan. I have already made a beautiful flight plan here. In SimBrief, we are flying the beautiful, of course, Dutchy 1, Papa Romeo Sierra 1. In the Falcon 50, we are flying Saint-Tropez, even Lima Foxtrot Tango Zulu to Geneva, Lima Sierra Golf Golf. We don't care about the alternate because real chats don't divert. Cruise altitude is 220, that's given to me by SimBrief, but since we're going to be pretty light and since this flight is only about 50 minutes, I'm going to be cruising at flight level 300. You could probably even go higher, but I feel like 300 is nice for this short little trip. I went 2,200 kilograms of fuel, should be all good. Zero fuel weight, just a tip. Don't look at that. I mean, you can use it, yeah, sure, but it really won't make that much of a difference. Unless you're doing like a 7-hour flight, then it might not be a good idea to depart with a full load, because I don't think you would make it in that case. We have a route here too. Just a quick disclaimer, if anybody is using the RealityXP GTN 750 like I do, you might already know that all the nav data is almost as old as my grandmother. So sometimes, nowadays it's not too bad, but sometimes when you have a route, you might have to make yourself a little custom waypoint. But I will show you how that works. It's kind of like using the CEVA INS, but it's really simple. I'll show you how it works. So quickly, before we do anything, we'll go into the fuel and payload page in X-Plane itself, because Carenado, I'm not going to talk about who it was. They did make their own menu, so we're going to here into edit weight and balance. We're going to add our fuel here. We want 2,200 kilograms of fuel. So all we do, I don't know if you need a tutorial for this. If in case you do, good luck with any other plane you're flying. But we'll go in here, set 2,200, something like that. Done. Apply, and then we're done. So now we just we can pretty much head up into the cockpit, get sorted, and get the flight plan in. Sorry. I was too quick. I'm always too quick, but if you want to change anything about your plane configuration wise, you have this little sexy menu to the right here, as you can see. And in that menu, you can change the look of your plane when it comes to winglets. You can actually add ground power. You can get rid of ground power. You can change your livery, all of that stuff. So if we click the Oscar in here, we can add or get rid of window reflectors. I like to keep them enabled. Instrument reflectors, I get rid of them because they sometimes just look really annoying. You can add static elements or get rid of static elements. What we mean by that is you can add or get rid of the engine covers. And I have a quick tip. If you want to fly your plane, I know it looks pretty cool, but it might be a good idea to get rid of them. So before you start your flight, get rid of the static elements there. You can also add winglets or get rid of winglets like the other options, but I like to keep them there because it does look kind of sexy, if I may say so myself. You can also open the door there, although you can also do that through the cabin itself. But if you're ready to fly, just hop into the cockpit, get the flight plan in, and then we're good to go. So we'll get rid of that. We'll press my beautiful shift number 1. And it's really quiet. I feel like it might be a good idea to actually start the plane because this is quite a bit uncomfortable. Should we just get started? I guess so. Let's start up. What we want to start up with is the panel up here. This is pretty much your electrical panel. Keep in mind one thing. We are flying a plane which is totally not made by Carenado, so some of the options in here, some of the switches right here are set in a complete wrong position for the Falcon 50. Like right here, for example, the Gen 1, 2, and 3 are your engine generators or starter generators as well. And for some reason, Carenado felt like it would be a good idea to keep them on. But if you want to just start up all clean, just get rid of those real quick, like it's nothing, and then we are good to go, I think. So what we want to start up with is this electrical panel. We want to get battery 1, plane will beep at you. Battery 2, plane will not beep at you. And then you can also connect the ground power. As soon as you connect external power, it will connect it by itself. So right there, and then as you can see in the external view, oh, there, I was lost. The ground power is connected. So after you've done that, we can get rid of the warnings. You can also start up the avionics. Those are quite hidden. They are up here. You have a left avionic and you have a right avionic, and as you can see, then your displays will come alive. For me, the GTN 750 will take a bit longer, but there you go. It's starting up now. And then if you want to actually align the IRSs, which is not too realistic in this plane, but we don't talk about that. You look down there, and you put your IRS, you just scroll once, boop, and there you go, and then you can put it back to nav, and then they are aligned. And in case you're flying with the GTN 750, you can start it up in the meantime too. That should all do its thing. So there we go. We'll go to map, and then we have that all sorted. But as I've already said, you might encounter some problems with the GTN 750's nav data later on. If you ever have a moment where you have a waypoint that does not exist in your GTN 750 because it's, I think, newer than the year 2020, you can already enter the waypoint manually as well. Let's say we want to visit a waypoint called DP3DP, for example. If we enter that in there, it says create user waypoint because it doesn't exist. And if you want to do that, I now notice that I typed in DP2DP, but it's fine, same thing. You can create a user waypoint, and then if you want to add the coordinates, just go down to SimBrief. Down here you will see the, down there, you will see the coordinates of every waypoint, or you could use Sky Vector for that too. And then if you go latitude, longitude there, you can enter the coordinates of that waypoint where you want to fly to. So it's really simple. It takes some time, but if you want to create a user waypoint like that, it's pretty simple. I've done that, for example, as well when we did a scenic trip towards Star Wars Canyon. I just made a manual waypoint with the coordinates of Star Wars Canyon, and we flew through the waypoint, pretty much as simple as that. So that's how you create a user waypoint. If you ever encounter a problem with that, it might take some time setting it up, but it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple way to fix it. Another thing that might be important to know about the GTN 750, I will show you how we do that in cruise or during the climb, but if you want to do it direct, and you want to do it in a really simple way while you're looking at the map, you just click a waypoint where you want to go to. Let's say you want to go direct to DMAT, you just click there, click the waypoint, you click direct, make sure it says the right thing, and then you can press activate, and then we'll activate the route, the direct. Same thing goes for the flight plan itself. Let's say I want to go direct to Barso, I just click Barso, then I click direct, and then we'll already have the direct to Barso as well. So all of that stuff is really simple to set up. The GTN 750 might look kind of scary at some points, but it's actually way easier than you might think it is. So how I like to fly with the map side, with the map on the left side and then the terrain or traffic on the right side. Since we have quite some terrain around us right now, I like to depart with terrain, but let's say I'm departing out of an airport like London City with a lot of air traffic around, I like to put the TCAS on that side, which is pretty simple as well. But hey, what if I want to make a really good looking screenshot, but that annoying Carenado, something menu is in the way? Another quick tip, if you want to get rid of that, it's pretty simple. Just scroll on it, and as you can see, boop, it will disappear. Now that our flight plan is set up, it is time to start up our engines. It's, again, like I said, pretty simple. You want to start up with your APU, just click APU master, then start. I know it says APU down there. You might think that it says engines, but no, we're looking for the APU. Press master, start, and if you go outside, you should be able to hear it start up as well. It starts up pretty quickly. I think it takes about 30 seconds or so. And as you can hear right now, it's already started up, so you're good to go. So if you want to start up the engines themselves, you want to start up the starter gens and the generators themselves. So you go generator 1, 2, and 3. You put the starters to ground 1, 2, and 3 over there. And as I said earlier, we have fuel in the we don't have fuel in the center tank. So if you want to feed engine number 2 as well, you put the cross feeds on, and then apart from that, you also want to put on all of the 6 booster and transfer pumps too. I don't know what they do IRL exactly, but that's how I like to fly it, and turns out that it actually works like that too. And another thing, by the way, if you want to get some extra air, right there you can also get the APU ISO valve on, and as you can hear, you will get some extra air like that. Now that we are on the APU, we can also get rid of our GPU. So click external power and it should disappear like that as well. So now we're ready to start up our engines. So just go anti-collision light, put that to red, your beacon will turn on, and then you're good to go. One thing you want to make sure is though, is that your engines are currently at the fuel off position. A way you can check that is by just moving them around. Right now they're pretty much not moving, but if they're in the wrong setting, they will actually move like that. It's pretty simple, but just so you know, if your engines don't turn on, it might be because of that. So you want to just put them back there, and then they're at the fuel off position. If you want to set up the engines themselves, I set up with engine number 2. So the way you do that is you hold the starter for 2 seconds, you get rid of it. Engine should start coming alive, and then at 12% on the N2, which is right now, you click the red button, you push the throttle up, and then the fuel should come in, and you should have an ignition. So there's our engine number 2. And then we can do the same for engine number 1. We hold that for 2 seconds, you get rid of it. Engine should start coming alive. 12%, and then we're good to go. Let's get the fuel in and click it there. I know it's really satisfying. You might want to do it a couple of extra times just for the sake of it, but that's how you do it. Perfect, now you have your engine started. So, it's again really simple. If you want to fly your plane, what you want to do, just get your flaps out. If you're departing from a long runway, and if you're not too heavy, just go depart with only the slats. But since we are departing from a 1 kilometer long runway, what I prefer to do is I depart with my actual flaps. So I'll go slats and then flaps 20 as well. So then you got slats and flaps, and if you want to make sure that it's actually selected, just look down there, and as you can see, they're in transit. We've got slats and flaps 20 as well, so then it's all set. And then you also want to make sure that you have your elevator trim set, stabilizer trim, whatever you want to call it, and then you just want to make sure that it's in that takeoff range, which is just that small little green box. Then for the next parts of the setup, you want to get the engine computers on, just put them to auto, all 3, and on departure I like to get the ignition over to air start. And then also, last thing, get your main bus, get it over there, connect the horizontal green band, and then you want to get the isolation valves for the 1, 2, and 3. Oh, 3 on, and then you can get rid of the APU side. I'm gonna be honest, I might have made a small mistake. During the startup, you want to get the bus tied, but since we have started up our engines, we can get rid of it. That's another thing that I mixed up about the panel states. Just put it here when you have started up your engines, and then you're good. Then the last thing we can do is we can get rid of the APU, of course. We'll stop the APU, get rid of the APU master, and then for our cruise altitude down here in the selector, you want to put flight level 300, or I like to do flight level 310 I've seen some operators do cruise altitude plus 1,000 feet, so we'll put it to 310. And then we're good. So just make sure that everything here is gone. Right now we only have the pitot heat. I always like to put that on during taxi, but since the plane's going to scream at me, I'll do pitot heat or pilot heat, sorry, 1 and 2 on. And then just look over here and make sure you have no warnings over there. So just to recap, we have our flaps, we have our trim, no warnings, the MCP is set up, so we're good to go. So we'll get rid of the parking brake, which is for some reason up there. Click it, then we're good, and then we can taxi out to runway 06. Of course, right now we're doing a pretty short taxi, but of course when you want to taxi, you do want to get your taxi light on. But again, we're barely taxiing right now, so we'll go straight over to our pulsating landing lights. We're departing at daytime today, so we don't really need to see the runway without getting interrupted. So we'll just put on the pulsating landing light and then we're good. You don't have to set up anything else. Everything is already sorted for departure now, so just line up and then we're ready to go. I'll just talk you through the departure itself, because stuff might look like it's going really fast. But that's pretty much also part of flying a plane without an auto throttle, without that much automation. What we do on takeoff, you can depart with full power, or you can put your thrust in the limiter over there. What I always like to do, because it's just fun, I depart with full power, so I just bump up my throttle to the highest position, and then once we pass about 1,500 or about 2,000 feet, we can put the thrust back to this position, just so we make sure that we're not overcooking the engine. Once we pass also about 1,000 feet, we'll get the yaw damper on as well. And then whenever you're ready, you can also press nav and flight level change. Because we do like to climb with flight level change, we normally, or at least I normally, climb with about 240 knots. I will show you a little graph, but 240 knots is a decent speed to actually have a decent climb rate with as well. Once you pass about flight level 350 or somewhat around that altitude, I do like to slow down to about 190 or 200 knots, just because there's not that much air at that altitude, so you don't want to climb too fast, because then you will just not get any vertical speed. So again, like we already said earlier, you want to select about 240 knots for the initial climb out, and that speed should give you a decent horizontal and vertical speed. So when you're ready to go, you can put your TCAS or your transponder to TARA, but the GTN 750 in P3, sorry, in X-Plane at least, should do that for you. You'll see that if you look at that during the takeoff rule, it will automatically switch to the on position. So if you want to go, you can get rid of your parking brake. Just make sure it's actually gone. Hold the brakes for a bit. We'll let the thrust come up. And then once it's stable, like I said, we want to have some fun. And you want to have some fun, so we'll go all the way to full power. Plane will start zooming a lot, and then just make sure the airspeed is alive, and you might want to get some aileron in if it's really windy, but right now it's not too bad. So our airspeed is alive, passing 80 knots. As you can see, our plane wants to tip over already, so we got our V1 speed, and then rotate, and the plane should start lifting off nicely. There we go. Now we can put the gear up even. We have a positive rate. Flaps up, and then also the slats up, because our speed is already high enough. And then if we pitch for about 15 or 10 degrees, we can already let the speed come up as well. So let's just follow down the SID, trim it out. We're now passing 1,000 feet, so we'll go get some sort of climb power in. Arm flight level change with 240 knots. Pitch down a bit so that we can actually gain that speed, and then also arm nav, and then that should turn us right towards our SID. So right now it's just a matter of following down the SID, managing the speed, and then we're good. As you can see, the flight level change does want us to pitch down a lot to gain the speed, but what I like to do is just pitch down to about 2,000 feet per minute. So we'll currently for now press vertical speed, pitch for about 2,100 feet per minute, get the autopilot on. And then whenever we do reach that 230 or 240 knot mark, we'll press flight level change, and then our plane will pitch for that speed. So again, we have the yaw damper now. Well, as you can see, we have the yaw damper on. We are pitching for 2,100 feet per minute. The speed is covered up nicely, and then once we reach about 230 knots, we'll press flight level change, and then you'll see how the plane starts pitching up. So there's 230 knots. Let's go flight level change. It will speed up, or sorry, pitch up to set it up to 240 knots. There we go, and then we're good. We can also go to standard pressure ready, so over at the barrel, just press the standard button there. We've got pressure 1013, 4,500 feet per minute, and 240 knots. All the engines are running nicely, we're not cooking anything yet. So now you're good to climb up to flight level 450 or 60,000 feet, whatever you prefer to do. Now when you want to set up the arrival itself, I might have just recorded something while being completely muted, but it's fine. If you want to set up the arrival, go to procedure, go to arrival. We will fly on the Keynes November arrival, so you will select that. As you can see, it will give you a quote-unquote transition into runway 04. That is correct, we're landing runway 04 Geneva right now. So we'll load in that arrival, and then same goes for the approach itself. If we go to procedure, back to approach, we can select the ILS runway 04, and there we will use VACTIS today. So then we can load in the approach. Don't load the approach and activate, because then it will turn straight towards it. But we can load in the approach, GPS guidance, blah blah blah, bull crap, we don't care about that. So we can press OK, and then it's sorted. If you then eventually want to do a holding pattern somewhere, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't exactly know where you hold at this current star we have. But let's say you want to hold at Suvel. You go to Suvel, you press hold at waypoint, and then as you can see, it will draw a holding pattern for you. But if you want to change stuff about that, let's say you want to make left turns, you just click it once. You want to change the inbound or outbound course, you click it once as well. Let's say you want to have an inbound course of 270. You select 270 on the inbound, and as you can see, it will draw the hold quite nicely for you. I have tried this at events, the GTN 750, at least it explained this holding patterns quite nicely, so you shouldn't have to worry about that too. As you can see, we're already approaching flight level 260 as well, with 1500 feet per minute right now. So like I said already, as soon as you get up higher, your indicated airspeed will change, or at least it won't change, but it will change your vertical speed. So let's say you want to climb a bit more faster, you go down to the speed selector down there. You select, for example, 230 knots, and your plane will just pitch up a bit, just because you don't have to fly that fast on the indicated airspeed anymore. Now, since that we are approaching cruise altitude now, you want to make sure that you have your Alt Select armed. It's kind of like the Dash 8. What you want to have on your screen here is Alt S, which will mean Alt Select. If you don't have that selected, your plane will just climb or descend straight through your selected altitude. So a way you could do that real quick is just by scrolling down for a sec and scrolling back up, and now you can see Alt Select is armed as well with flight level 300. So as you can see with this beautiful view right now, we should be all good to flight to level off. Sorry, at flight level 300 for this trip. Now that we actually level up flight level 300, what we can do is start to manage the thrust a bit more. As you can see, we are still relatively slow. We're still at speed 240 indicated. Power set still to our cruise power. What I like to do, I like to cruise at about 290 knots, if not higher. So once we start to approach that speed, we can slow down the speed a bit to about 80%, and 1 will do. And here for these in climb thrust settings. So sorry, cruise power setting even. So once we, for example, right now, let's say you want to cruise at 270 or 260 knots, we just get the thrust back since we don't have an auto throttle, and then look for a speed or a thrust setting at which your speed will become stable. So let's say 78%, 77% right now will do. And as you can see right now, our speed is stable. Once you fly at higher altitudes though, you do want to keep a lot more power in, because there's just not that much air around you again. But since we're only cruising at flight level 300 right now, 77% and 1 will do. Now, if you're using the GTN 750, you might already know that it calculates the top percent for you. Before you want to check if you have a top percent, just make sure you actually have some altitude restrictions in your star or in your arrival or at a certain waypoint. Right now, for example, we have a 140 restriction, sorry, at the Valbu waypoint. Our plane will calculate the top percent for that. For example, if you go to your menu, then Utilities VNav, you can see that it has the Valbu restriction with flight level 140, and then once you actually start to approach the top percent, it will show you the required vertical speed to descend to that certain restriction. It already shows you as well where you can expect the top percent. If you go to your map, Right here you will see right in before the keyness waypoint we have a TOD, top of descent. So once we approach the TOD, your plane will shout a vertical track right in your face. And then if you go back again to that utility page, it will show you when you can descend as well. This plane does have a VNAV option, but I believe that only comes with the default default Carenado avionics. So whenever you want to descend with a GTN 750, just use vertical speed and then just select the vertical speed to be somewhat at around the vertical speed required, and that should in general bring you down to the right altitude where you want to be at for a certain waypoint. So we're approaching our top of descent now finally, so if you click over there or if you just zoom in, you can see that we are just passing our top of descent right now. And if you now go back to the utilities page, VNAV, you can see that our VS required at our current indicated airspeed or ground speed is 1790 technically. Whenever you would increase or decrease your speed, that will change. Like right now, if we get a lot more power in, you'll see that vertical speed required, or as we just progress along the flight without descending, you will see that vertical speed required will increase by a lot. But let's say we keep the power here. We can now go to vertical speed, select that desired vertical speed, so that's to 2000 or 1900 feet per minute will do. But whenever you want to speed up or slow down, just take a look at your utilities page, check your VNAV page, and just make sure you select the desired vertical speed for that too. Like right now, without reducing the power, you can see that we want to nosedive by a lot more. But when we want to, if we stabilize our speed at about 270 to 80 knots, you can see that vertical speed will stabilize. So let's now pitch down even more to 2000 feet per minute, and then we're good. For the ILS itself, if you want to do an ILS in the GTN 750, at least you might have already seen that the ILS gets tuned automatically. Whenever you would select a desired approach, or your desired approach, or an ILS or a VOR approach for that matter, it will automatically tune that ILS. We currently have 11090, so we can already change it over to the active frequency. So then when we want to approach the ILS, we can actually switch our nav source over, and then the plane should, I'm saying should because it not always does that, but it should 90% of the time establish nicely. Again, it's kind of like any other plane, kind of like the Dash 8 as well. When you want to establish onto an ILS, you want to switch over the nav source. We do that by clicking the preset down here. When we do click that, we can select our course, and then whenever we get close enough to the ILS, it will show in there too. With the GTN 750, the ILS should automatically put the course in for you too. So what should happen is that when we change the nav source, our plane should automatically, whenever we get close enough to the ILS, it should automatically establish as well. But it does that without selecting the course on the display itself. Like it would still show you like it's a complete wrong course. So what I always prefer to do is when we switch over to vectors and when we can get rid of our flight plan in our GTN 750, I like to switch over the nav source and then actually select the course as well. Just for my own sake. Again, it should do it automatically. It should establish, even though you have a different course selected, which is for myself. I do like to put the actual course in as well, but I will give you a quick piece of advice. I don't know if I showed you that yet, but if not, I will do it for the first time. If I have the second time, when we did start our descent, as you can see, you don't really have to select a certain altitude you want to descend to. But let's say you do that. Let's say you are at 50300 like we were, and you start your descent without selecting any altitude below you, your plane will just continue descending with the current vertical speed. If you really want to level off right away, like right now we want to select flight level 110. I can show you right now with something as simple as flight level 106. Or sorry, here, we'll just keep it at 110. We'll start the descent. And as you can see, our plane will start the descent right now, but it doesn't know where to go. It will only level off if you select a different altitude. For example, right now, if you select 108, it will now actually level off. But if you don't do that, your plane will just keep on descending. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You could use that for like restrictions if you want to have a reference altitude instead of like actually an altitude where you would level off at. But like for example, right now, if you have a lot of restrictions on your star, you might actually want to select the altitude too, so you level off in time. What you can see as well right now is if we go back here, or if we look outside, you can see that we're right bang on a beautiful downwind into Geneva. Airport is right there. So what we can do is we can cut the approach a bit short. So let's say we want to descend to 6,000 feet or 7,000 feet initially. We'll go vertical speed, pitch down to about 1,500 feet. Or in our case, actually, since we're quite high, we'll go for 2,000 feet per minute. For 2,000 feet per descent. So we've got the approach short, we should be all good. So right now I've just gone idle, so the speed comes back nicely or slowly. We have vertical speed of 2,000 feet per minute, which will bring us down to 7,000 feet. And as you can see right now, the altitude restriction for the ILS, being the Papa Alpha Sierra VOR, the Passellerie, or whatever VOR, is at 6,000 feet. So what we can also do is we can pitch down even more with a bit of speed brake. Let's use the first option of the speed brake setting. So we'll go for the first. Oh god, not that. We'll get the speed brakes out, and then we can actually start our descent with, let's say, 3,000 feet per minute. Because this plane, if you do use the right vertical speed, you do use the right thrust setting, you do use the right speed brake setting, you can actually descend with almost 5,000 feet per minute. So right now, if we go full vertical speed, so we just click the vertical speed like that, speed brake even, you can see that the plane really wants to nosedive a lot. Our speed is decreasing rapidly, our altitude is still at 3,000 feet per minute, so that works nicely. So now again we have, let's switch it over, 6,000 feet selected, we have alt cell, 3,000 feet per minute. Speed is currently still ticking down, so what we can do right now is we can select our heading to our current heading. So if we change it, for example, to heading 223, and we then click heading select, our plane is still flying straight, but then if we change the nav source, we can actually approach the ILS. As you can see, it already came live as well, with the right course as well. It might not be showing this the right thing in here, but we have course 043, localizer 110.9 set, and as you can see, the localizer is alive too. So if we want to flip that route right now, as you can see, we're leveling off as well, so we'll get rid of the speed brake. If we now flip over the heading to, let's say, 360 or something around that, we'll do 330 first. You'll see that the plane established onto the ILS quite nicely as well. So there we go, there's our base of final turn. We are currently at 6,000 feet, speed 200 knots. That's a decent speed to approach chat. We'll continue the heading right to, let's say, 350. If you just want to double check right now, you can check on GTN 750 or whatever if you want to set your use. We do have V-lock selected, which is the right setting for the ILS. We are currently just a bit above the glide slope, but it should update itself automatically. If you look outside as well, you can see the airport right there too. So if we want to descend further, let's say 4,000 feet, just go vertical speed. Let's select about 1,500 feet per minute again. We'll use the power by a lot. We'll expedite even more, let's say 2,000 feet. And then we can also arm approach, and once we actually approach the localizer, you could also select it right now, but I have had moments where the plane just suddenly turns left and right. But we can give it a try. Let's click approach, see what it does. We now have approach, localizer 1 selected. The glide slope is already armed, but it should kick in as soon as we actually do approach it as well. There we go, glide slope, watch the vertical speed. It should at least pitch up a bit, and then it's all good. So let's continue the right turn just a bit to heading 360 to establish more nicely. We can also kind of change the vertical speed in there, but there we go. There's our glide slope kicking in. Localizer should kick in soon. As you can see, we have the airport right there. So now it's just a matter of watching the plane and praying that it would do the right thing. So there we go, there's the localizer. It is approaching us right now. Plane is trying to establish slowly onto the glide slope. Now our approach is completely taken over. We have localizer, autopilot of course, and glide slope armed. So our plane's going to level off at 4,000 feet now. So again, if you're in a proper mountainous area, I do suggest you to actually watch your altitude selected, but right now it's not too bad. So there's 4,000 feet. Our plane will try and establish onto the glide slope, and now it's just also catching with the localizer. What you can do in this plane is you can slow down to 140 or 120 knots right away. But what I like to do is I like to stay at about 200 knots till we're about 8 miles out, and then I'll start getting configured. If you look down there, you can get the stats down at about 200 knots, then flaps at 190. So right now, for example, we'll just get the speed brake up for a bit to slow down a bit more. And then once we approach 200 knots, we'll get the stats down. We'll go for the gear right away too, and then we'll get configured. A quick thing about the VREFs, they are given by the plane, but they are not too accurate. But if you want to land nicely, just stick to about 110, 120 knots, and then you should be good to go. If you're really landing on a short runway, 100 might even be doable, but then you really have to watch the speed. Just make sure you don't stall. So there's 194 knots. We'll go stats down. As you can see, they're coming down nicely too. So there's the stats. We'll go gear down as well. And as soon as we're even slower, we'll go for the flaps 20 as well. So we'll get our landing light back to pulse. And there we go, there's 185 knots, so we'll get the flaps out too. We'll disconnect the autopilot. Plane gets really loud. And then we'll take over. So we'll get rid of the flight director, do our own thing. As you can see, this plane is a proper brick, so the plane will lose speed even really quickly. And now it's just a matter of flying it onto the runway. Preferably with a decent landing, otherwise everybody will complain. So now we can also go flaps full, so we'll go flaps 48 and then we're good. Quick thing about the braking itself, this plane doesn't have any auto brakes. The plane doesn't have like an automatic speed brake. So the best way to land this plane is just land it, slam on the brakes, and then put the speed brakes up yourself as well. Or you could just land without the speed brakes because they don't really do a lot in this plane anyway. Since we're really light right now, you can see that I'm flying at 104 knots, even though my plane wants me to be at 110 or 120 knots. But as soon as you just watch that speed and watch the vertical speed, you can try and find a speed at which you're most comfortable to land with. Ooh, there. Then for the flare itself, this plane lands with flaps 48, which is like a wall coming down of your wing. So the ground effect will kick in quite quickly. You could flare in this plane for sure, but just try not to make it too aggressive, because then you'll float down at the end of the runway. I'm pretty good at that myself, but you might not want to have that happen as well if you're landing on a short runway, for example. Then for the reverse, if you're landing on a way shorter runway, one thing you need to keep in mind is that the reverse takes a couple of seconds to actually kick in. Because I'll show you right now, we have a transit and a deployed setting. As soon as I engage even reverse, you will see that it takes quite some time for it to actually activate. So if you're landing on a runway which is like 300 meters long, I don't know why you would, but if you want to do that, if you want to be proper and unrealistic, but if you want to have some fun, I'd say put out the reverse already at like 20 feet, so you have enough time to actually let that activate. But on a runway like that, that doesn't really matter. And right now, for example, we don't even need reverse. So there we go, approaching 1600 feet already. As you can see, I completely forgot about the altimeter, but we don't care about that anyway. We're not about that thing today. And we do have our callouts anyway too. So there we are over the runway, 110 knots, looks good. We can get the power out quite quickly. I hope. And then it's all good. There's 50 feet. 30. I'll keep the power in for a bit, start bringing it down quickly. 10. And then at 10 feet, I'll close the power and wait till the plane actually wants to land. Or float, in my case. Or float even more in my case. But there we go. There's touchdown. We'll let the nose come down slowly. Another thing to keep in mind is the Falcon 50's rudder, in my experience, does not do a lot. So let's say you have a crosswind landing. There we go already. Let's say you have a crosswind landing. You want to keep the rudder in almost full left or full right, whatever the wind is coming from, wherever the wind is coming from. But as soon as you do level out your gear, level out your plane even, and your nose gear touches down, you want to make sure, and I'm speaking from experience here, because it has gone, well, almost gone wrong multiple times. If you have a full left rudder on touchdown, or right rudder again, and your nose touches down and you don't have a separate tiller, your nose wheel steering will be full left as well. So in case you do have your rudder all the way to one side and you touch down, your plane will do the F18 and it will almost slip down, completely tip over to one side. So when you do bring down your nose, make sure you pay attention to your rudder. You kind of want to time it correctly and try to get rid of that rudder input as soon as it's like this close to the runway. But that doesn't happen often, but if it does, just like I said, make sure you put down your nose, there we go, after you've adjusted your rudder input, because otherwise you'll be at the complete other side of the runway. And now again, for the parking itself, let's say you want to park on the grass or whatever you want, just put your plane somewhere. The shutdown isn't really that important. But there is one other bit of information. If you are flying the Carenado Falcon 50, in my experience, the engines do not want to start up a second time. So if you do shut down your plane and you want to start the engines again, you do have to do a quick shift Control E. But it shouldn't be that much of an issue. I mean, we don't care that much about realism, do we? And let's say you want to park here at this beautiful turn bay, which is for us, of course, a beautiful VIP stand. You just pull it up to the side or wherever stand you want to go. It's all really straightforward. It doesn't really matter that much. Let's say this is our stand. We'll park it up right here. You just whack out the parking brake. So let's consider Yankee 1 to be our stand. We'll just put it down there, set our parking brake, start up our APU or go straight to ground power. We'll go straight to ground power, so we'll go ground power, get the bus tight again, click the covers, engine 3, 2 and 1, and then just drag them down like standby. There we go. We'll look down there, get the cover up like so, and then we can also bring that back, and now engine number 3 should go quiet as well. So there we are. We are finally in Geneva. I hope you somewhat found this tutorial helpful. It wasn't that detailed. I know it wasn't that special, but that wasn't my goal. I've just been asked sometimes how you fly this plane, how you manage the speeds, or how you exactly land, or how you climb. So that's pretty much what this tutorial was for. So I hope it helped. If it didn't, I hope you somewhat enjoyed the plane. If you didn't enjoy it as well, I hope you enjoy any other plane I fly. And I'll see you in the next live stream, in the next video, in the next Instagram post, wherever. I'll put all the links out in the description. I will see you guys soon. Have a very good rest of your day or night, because I know we are night owls as well. And I'll see you later, guys. See ya. Bye.